Okay, so welcome everybody to Melbourne's first Thrive Solutions group. My name is George Neo, and I was at the, I'm sort of starting again. I was at the Thrive Solutions Summit and met up with Foster Gamble. And I'm just going to repeat a little bit of the speech that I gave there, and then we can go into a more informal group from there. I've listed here the top 10 actions which are taken from the Thrive website. Get informed, bank locally, buy and invest, join the movement, keep the internet fair and open, well, let's cross our fingers, support independent media, organic, non-NGO, election and campaigns of finance reform, renewable energy, and take part in critical mass actions. I think the movie itself went further than just that sort of agenda, right? And this is my contribution to that aspect of the movement. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we do here. Magpie House has been established for 8 years, and it's a tool to raise consciousness, raise awareness about different subjects, and it's kind of driven by my intense curiosity and also of the unexplainable. And part of what we're doing is, part of the basis is getting out of our minds, which is analytic, so that we can get back to our senses, which is experiential. I was working with a group of physicists in 2001 actually, when I was an electronics engineer, and I did ask them a question, and the question I asked was, what's the only constant in the universe? None of them could answer it. So what do you think it is? What's the only constant in the universe?
Sound.
Sorry?
Sound.
No, that's not quite where I'm going. Well, it's change, right? It's the only thing that's constant. Everything keeps changing all the time, right? Mm. And I was hoping that the group of physicists would have answered that, but anyway. What I found with exploring going beyond the third dimensional context is that the basic fundamentals of the universe cannot be explained, right? So it's an interesting characteristic of our third dimensional universe is none of the physicists, and including Nassim Haramein, has ever come up with a complete explanation for what life is, for what matter is, for what the light is, what love is. Those basic fundamentals cannot be explained from a third dimensional context. We can keep chopping up the atom and get smaller and smaller particles. You'll never get to the answer that glues everything together. You have to go beyond the third dimensional context in order to explain that. So that should be a clue to us. We cannot explain what we are. It should be a clue to us that there's more to than our just third dimensional experience. In the movie, of course, they did touch on the crop circles and those sort of mysteries, the UFOs, ETs. So at least we are looking at last, right? There's something beyond what we understand. Part of the mission here has evolved towards examining how highly evolved beings, how they organise their societies, and of course to dispel illusions of the way we do live. And that's resulted in a project we're doing up in New South Wales on 2,000 acres based on some of these fundamentals that we're working with. The basis of what we're doing is that all we do or hold originates from a thought or a vision. Right? When you think about it, we've got to think about it first before you can create it. And if there's a flaw in that thought or vision, then everything that you create from there is also flawed. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think it does. One of my favourite sayings comes from a Japanese proverb. Vision without action is just a dream. That's pretty obvious. But action without vision is a nightmare. So we start taking action and trying to fix all these problems without going into a vision and thinking about it and forming a dream, we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble.
So that's something like Einstein said, you can't solve something using the same level of consciousness as the problem as well.
Yeah, I was going to go into that as well. Now, one of the illusions that we live under is that we are farmers, right? But if you look at the word farm, that means to take, doesn't it? When you farm something, you take from it, you extract from it, whereas to garden is to contribute and proliferate, right? So we've got the terms wrong. You know, we're out there farming the land, but all we're doing is raping it. If that makes any sense. And one of the biggest economic lies, one of the biggest lies that we live under is that we are consumers, right? And the problem with that is that this creates division, it creates fear, it creates lack of resources, and not enough mindset, and it creates resource competition. And we find that the modern economics is based on the government and the education system drives that. Right? The whole government system works on modern economics, and we are consumers, right? Now, but if we are seeking to thrive, then why not redefine ourselves as loving, interdependent, supportive producers? So, you know, I could ask everybody in this room, what do you feel you are? Are you a consumer, or are you a loving, interdependent, supportive being? Which one would you choose? Yeah, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Right. But if you're just a consumer, you're a slave. Right? You're a slave to the system. So just by changing that mindset, we can start changing what's out there, right? Rather than being slave to what's out there. Another illusion is that is the idea of overpopulation. Right? Now, there is a lot of people on the planet. There's no doubt about that. But if we get into the idea that there's just too many people, right? I hear it all the time. And people go into fear. They say, oh, there's just too many people around the world. We've got to do away with some. You know, we've got to do away with lots. And I say to them, well, who would you like to start with? Would you like to start with you or me, or would you like to start with some religious faith, or the Muslims, or the Christians, or all the Americans, or all the Chinese? Who do you want to start with?
Some bright spark.
Sorry?
Some bright spark then says, let's start a war, that'll solve it.
That's right, yeah, it's an excuse for war. Right? It's also an excuse for the chemtrails, it's an excuse for the Codex legislation.
So China and Japan, they've got a one child per family policy, is it?
Not only China.
China,
yeah. I feel what needs to be introduced into the world is what we're getting compound interest with humanity. It's compounding on top of itself and on top of itself, getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go on. So what we need to think about in the future is population control and maybe a limit of 2 kids per household. One to replace you.
So rather than starting to suggest ways of controlling the world, I think we're sort of getting off the track there. And the whole thing about this misinformation of whether the world's overpopulated or not, it's still got an agenda to push their sustainable development agenda.
Yeah.
So that's behind it, because there isn't a lack of resources when you know how to use the world. harmoniously, as I'm sure you know.
I think we don't really have to, I think we're worrying too much about the overpopulation, because there's so many people who are infertile these days. There are lots of European countries who are going backwards with their own population. Here in Australia the same, there's lots of young people who are infertile. So I think that if we try to play nature here and be ourselves controlling, I don't know whether we are achieving that what we really want to achieve. I think there's that will balance itself out. Plus, if you have got countries where you've got economically a situation where people don't have to worry, these countries usually have less children than those people who are poor. So maybe the answer is really to find a system where the whole world can equally benefit from the fruits of the earth and what have you, rather than putting in another set of controls.
And it'll take care of itself.
That's right. Yeah, the key is awareness. Right? As people get more educated, more aware, higher consciousness, it solves the problem. You know,
it's number one on your list. Let's spread the truth.
Yeah, that's right.
Start having common sense.
Yeah, but when you're in fear, right? When you're in fear, you might think, well, I better have as many babies as I can.
So many people are in fear, and I think that's what we're all doing here, is to try and spread some good, honest common sense that gives people substance in their lives again, not this farce.
You actually find that the more educated countries are actually declining in population.
Yes.
Because you actually need a fertility rate of about 2.2 or more, 2.7, I can't remember what it was, but the fertility rate is below that level in a lot of countries. Right? And as we become more equitable around the world, it'll balance itself out. So the horror stories that we've heard about overpopulation just simply do not have to be
rubbish.
Just by changing the mindset. Yeah. All right. So that one.
What we have to do is give television set to every person, every country in Africa and Asia, and there will be no more babies.
I think we should break all the television.
I think we should
sets
axe all the cables and stop the frequencies in each household.
The lies they perpetrate on it.
And open up to the real media.
One for you and one for...
Anyway.
Well, I'd like to describe an example of what might be perceived overpopulation, which is in our recent past. One of the movies we showed, America Before Columbus. Before Columbus came to America, the Americas were a thriving and a sustainable population of 100 million people. Right? Not many people know that. Right? It's the same population that was in Europe. 100 million in Europe, 100 million in the North Americas. And of course, that was only 20 generations ago. Right? And when the invasion happened, there was mass slaughter, but the biggest killer was the diseases. Now, when you look at the way those two continents were operating, in Europe, it was a livestock-based system. And when you have livestock, you need vast areas of land, and so they cleared a lot of the land in Europe, right? And that poisoned the waters, right? So the fresh water became contaminated, and the fish in the freshwater systems vanished, virtually vanished. When they went over to America, they found the rivers were teeming with life, because they were so clean. In the Americas, the system was one of, it was land-based, and so the wild animals would roam free. There was no livestock, so to speak. Right? So, even with a population of 100 million, it was a thriving landscape. I think we can learn some lessons from that. There is a problem with the idea of big cities, right? And this might be difficult for a lot of people to accept this idea. Is in a big city we are consumers. We almost haven't got a choice. We're sitting in our houses, concrete houses with a tiny little block of land, And you can't help it. There's not much you can produce in a big city.
So isn't the question, why do we have such large cities? Have you got the
Industrial Revolution.
No. I see it differently. If you go back in historically in where you haven't had this massive so-called planning, the moment a city got too inflexible for people to move sufficiently or have sufficient water or whatever, a new city was built somewhere else. So a new population started. So you didn't have these massive cities. The big cities we have because of the planning. Because our planners in governments keep on forever expanding the cities forever to be bigger.
I mean, Freemasons.
I don't know Freemasons, but it's definitely the planners. Every
They're all
council has got
Freemasons.
a planning department. The city, they're all planning how to make more roads to bring the city, the people back into the city. The problem is we have got too many bureaucrats governing us.
Well, we are the bureaucrats.
That is something.
You're spot on. You're exactly right.
Yeah, so if it
You're exactly right. And that was,
actually, I didn't realize I might need it. I happen to have a picture here from the city of Prague. You're familiar where Prague is?
Yes.
Czech Republic, correct. Now, there was absolutely no planning until approximately the time of Karl IV. And that's why you have got this very individualistic center of the city, where millions of people go there every year to have a look. You may want to hand them around. Now this
we understand, we know. It gets back to what this lady
what
said.
the planners are doing. The planners make our cities uninteresting. It has to be this, it has to have that facade. The individualism is killed by our planners.
I think it gets back to her. So what's your
Linda.
Linda gets back to her point. If you look higher up the planning route, or who actually submits the planning, or the engineers, and then it follows suit. It does
The
get
great
back
architect.
to the architects
The great architect.
and the politicians, and then you go through the politicians, and it goes back to the Freemasons.
Yeah.
I've seen conclusive evidence on that, and I think
That's right.
most of it that it might be their opinion that they might agree. So that's where I'm at.
In a way,
but
we are the
attitude-
planners, we are the bureaucrats, right?
Yeah, because we haven't done anything about it,
Exactly.
and it's all implied consent.
Yeah, we put them there.
Well,
We
I don't know, George. I think I think it's implied because implied consent, but because we're not doing anything about it, I guess.
yeah,
You're
that's
right. You got a point there.
We've submitted ourselves to being
Exactly.
consumers.
Yeah, that's right.
In which case,
Submitted exactly.
we
by,
are feeding the
by
system.
begging and implied consent. Yeah.
Well, most people have given up their responsibility to
Yeah.
these crowds because of
That's right.
being told they're benevolent, to, looking after us, and they're not. So it's not just as you say, consenting.
Yeah.
It's being deluded. It's being deceived.
Well, even
Yeah.
coming here,
Deceit,
just coming to a meeting like this is trying to take back our power.
That's right.
Just being here is just
Yeah.
really positive.
So, yeah, I've actually got more
So
on
we actually
that
agree.
particular subject.
You're 100% right.
All right, so in a big city we are consumers. It's not the highly evolved being model. And I'd like to describe what the highly evolved being model is, right? Because there's very good information on that, how highly evolved societies function. And it's certainly not in a big city. The real wealth is actually in the rural land. And what's been happening and what's happening more and more is that the rural land is getting corporatised, right?
And fracked.
And fracked, yes, exactly. Yeah, the coal seam gas. And, we've got this idea that a multi-million-dollar waterfront is where there's wealth, but there's no tangible wealth there. You can't grow anything there, for one thing. You just got a view over the bay. Isn't that fantastic? Right? But the real wealth is in the land, right? And so we've got to be careful that this land is not completely corporatised. It almost is.
But the real value is also in manufacture, not just in the land. Because you can have the most beautiful agricultural land, but if you have developed a culture like we have in Australia, where we've got such a huge percentage just opening up their hands
Yeah.
to receive and not wanting to work. And on the other hand, we don't even want to have people who are prepared to work for less money to come into the country. While this is a road to disaster, we have to also the making of things is just equally as important.
For sure, but
Right.
let's have a base which is
Useful thing.
land-based.
And yeah, I was going to say, making quality things what they're actually proposing on Thrive, that there's, instead of all these petrochemical cars,
Yeah.
whatever, money's put into electric cars or that with free energy electricity. So, you know, we want good
Natural
production.
products.
And instead
Natural
of big
production.
furniture factories, have carpenters again, people
Yes.
making tables.
And not making formaldehyde in carpets, making
Yeah.
quality carpets,
Yeah.
quality paint.
People
Yeah,
lose
Yeah,
interest
agreed,
in
yeah.
art and-
things that aren't poisoning us. So, yeah.
But the awareness in the broad population isn't there yet.
No, it's not. No.
It's not going to change from one day to the
Well,
other.
Well, that's where this ground movement comes in. It's to
That's what we
change
do
the,
too, as a group.
all
You
these
know,
falsehoods.
just make the awareness, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I'd
the
like-
issue is not only people in the city versus people in the country or small
No, no, it's
villages
not.
along the line, because they are consumers as well, and
Yes.
maybe they are
True.
good consumers than people. Yeah.
People have to be made aware the one thing you leave off the shopping list is the supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting we should just depopulate the big cities. I mean, that would be insane. You know, we've got to sort out what we've already got before we can do something like that.
So, George, we're consumers, right? We're consumers because you go to the letterbox, what's the first thing you pull out? A pamphlet from a sci-fi or something. Jeez, put that away, you know. You turn the TV on, watch TV for 5 minutes, and bang, there's the ads on again. We're getting it pushed in our faces time and time again,
Oh yeah.
and even subliminally in ways, like we're watching Neighbours or something, they'll drive past McDonald's and say McDonald's, the big M in the background.
So the television
And
ads.
we're getting it forced upon us, and things are also not getting built the way they used to be built, and things are getting built out of chipboard. You buy a chipboard desk and it falls apart 12 months later, so you throw it out on hard rubbish. And then you go and buy another one which is going to fall apart in the same amount of time again.
Yeah, well, the television that
She's
you
right,
mentioned
was saying we have to start learning to make carpenters here, not importers which import chipboard.
Yeah, well, you know, the television is the tool of mass deception,
Yeah.
that you mentioned. Yeah, but you know, I despite the manufacturing industry and all that,
distraction.
and distraction.
And
Yeah, well,
indoctrination.
sure, there's lots of indulgent stuff we can get involved with. But I put forward the idea that the land is where the real well-field is. You know, despite the manufacturing, we still have to have access to land, otherwise you're not going to be able to grow your food. Like a big city, for example, New York City has actually only got 2 days worth of food. Right? It gets trucked in every day. Now imagine if that trucking line stopped. What would the city do? I don't think Melbourne's much different.
What did that Indian bloke say again, George? Something to the effect of only when you've destroyed everything will you realise
You
money
can't.
can't be eaten. Yeah.
Well, as I said, I'm not postulating, well, why don't we just depopulate the big cities? Is there enough land to do that? And there's a model that we have referred to many times, even for our project up north. Has anybody heard of the Ringing Cedars information? Right, Ringing Cedars, Russia. There's a series of 9 books that came out of Russia, and Russia's got an interesting past, and they went through a phase, you know, when the Soviet Union collapsed, the families were starving, right? And somebody had the sense to give the land back to the people, right? And so you had tens of millions of families which started working the earth with their bare hands, right? They didn't have machines. Now what it does suggest in the books that the earth is a sentient being and actually felt every pair of hands in the earth, and that gave the earth the courage to carry on. Right? Otherwise, the earth would have thrown us off the planet, and that's what's suggested in here. I've seen that suggestion coming from many different sources, and the period was around 1992. I can describe all those different scenarios which were pointing to the same thing. And it was a big surprise to me to read it in here. I thought, oh, okay, there's another pointer to that period. So that's interesting. Now, in the ringing cedars model, the ringing cedars model is actually based on the ancient Vedic way of life, which predates the Christian, it predates the pagan civilization. And the Vedic civilization was worldwide. It's not just isolated to India. Now, the question does arise, well, is there enough land? Because in the ringing cedars model, every king's domain, every family has 1 hectare. Right? Now, I've did some calculations. Hang on, I'll just get rid of that. Where is it? Johnny, I'm right in the middle of the seminar. Can I call you back? Okay, let's have a look at Australia. Now in Australia, what is it, 90% of the population is around just a few centres, one on the other side I suppose, but it's a huge amount of the population is on the coastal region, in specific places, right? And we're all crowded in, and historically humans, when they've congregated together in big cities, they devastate the area and it becomes infertile and they've got to move off, right? So that's the model we're adopting. However, Australia is a big place. It's roughly 3,000 kilometres by 2,000 kilometres, and if you do the calculations on that, that's 6 million square kilometres, right? Which is actually 600 million hectares, right? So we've actually got 600 million hectares in Australia. And now, does that sound enough hectares to populate Australia's population? If we've got, for example, 6 million families, that's probably going to be about right, right? Then you only need 1% of the land to do it the ringing cedars way. That makes sense? Yeah. So you only need a little bit of land. I mean, even in the US of A, you might need 10% of the land because they've got 10 times the population.
And what people don't realise is that even if you get given a pocket of arid land, you then learn from people, for instance, in the Middle East, who hardly get any water.
That's right.
And have sustainable practices and can actually eke out a respectable living. It's all about being wise with how you treat the land.
That's exactly what the Ringing Cedars advocates, and those tens of millions of Russian families were starving, and they had to do that. They brought biodiversity into the land. Right? They had hundreds of species on 1 hectare, whereas the farming model that we're using is monoculture. Thousands, millions of hectares, all one species. That's very dangerous for our continued well-being. Or cattle, livestock. Livestock is a very inefficient way to grow food.
Today's housing is you don't get a backyard which is that or that. You can't grow a decent crop in your own backyard with today's housing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's fairly small. Yeah. Whereas the King's Domains have a balanced plan for each family. You've got a...
you can have your cow, you can have your chooks, your ducks.
Yeah, you even have your own woodlot, so you can grow timber as well. And so everything's in balance.
Tom Tolman talks about that you can actually grow enough vegetables on your balcony.
You probably could.
Bill Mollison says that.
Yeah.
But what about Cuba when they had the oil embargo? everybody was starving. You know, that's wonderful, inspiring, uplifting, good news DVD ever.
Yeah, I've played that here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it called again?
I don't know, Cuba, it was about Cuba anyway.
Yeah, I
They
know,
were starving,
Yeah.
and they didn't really bother with vegetables very much, but because they were all hungry, they had to start growing their own food.
Well,
So
what
the
happened
little
was the
part of Cuba was
oil ran
Yeah.
out. I mean, when Russia, Soviet Union
yeah, it was the
collapsed,
oil embargo.
yeah, and then the Americans wouldn't give them any oil,
Mm.
and so they had to spend for themselves, and they did that very well. Now, interestingly, there was another movie we showed about the neighbouring island. What's it called? Jamaica, right? Now, it's similar climate, similar environment, but Jamaica went hugely into poverty and debt, and that's because they were controlled by the World Bank. So here we had Cuba, totally independent from the World Bank, thriving, and you got Jamaica going deeply into poverty and debt.
In the same situation.
Yeah, because they had the World Bank running things.
I think it's changed recently with Cuba, hasn't it? I think they're under the UN, aren't they?
No.
So they're not. You sure about that?
Well, I
Because
think
they
they were
don't
independent.
Not
I don't
in
know what it
media.
is now.
I think it's all changed.
Because they don't
I
get
don't know.
support for the communist regimes that
Yeah, I think
basically
it's,
disappearing, so
from
they're
my
not
knowledge,
getting
it's all changed.
support
but-
anymore, so they
yeah.
have to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
But do we know, does anyone know whether we still have got an oil refinery in
Yeah.
Australia?
Oh yeah.
Oil refineries?
We have, yeah.
Refinery,
We've got
refinery.
Hastings.
off the offshore, we do. We absolutely do, yeah.
Apparently they've recently found that South Australia is sitting on approximately 2 trillion
Yeah.
barrels of oil.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a refinery in South Australia too, near Christmas Beach.
I
They've
have
recently
heard we
found
have not a refinery
it's 2
anymore.
trillion
All the
barrels.
petrol
Oh,
is being
well,
imported.
whether
in
it's
South Australia.
whether
That
it's
is critical.
whether it's on Australian land or whether it's owned corporately by countries overseas, that's
Take Australia down
something we have to look at.
and
But
sell it off as well, mate.
who knows? I don't.
So if you have not
Until you
our
look,
own-
you don't know, do
If we
you?
have not our own refineries,
Yeah.
the dollar gets out of kilter.
Yeah, that's right.
There's two or three. There's one here in Victoria, Western.
There's plenty of them around here.
Actually,
Australia's very rich in
Yes.
oil resources. Yeah.
And there's one another
Yeah.
one in South Australia, and I'm sure there's one in New South Wales somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, aren't we getting more and more dependent on overseas oil then?
Yeah, we are. That's why I mentioned.
Well, it's different
To,
grade.
Take it.
Right.
Well, how would you know
Okay,
if it was
sorry, yeah.
overseas or not?
I'm
They
gonna
probably
be-
charge you the same price whether it's from Australia or wherever
They
it's from.
don't.
Well, they use the Singapore price as parity.
Or whatever
price.
the world price is, even though they might have got it out of Bass Strait, and there's masses
That's
of oil
right, but it's
out
owned
there.
by overseas companies. That's the problem, you know.
But what I
And
do
it's-
not understand is the following. We are so rich in
Absolutely.
gas,
Yep.
which is even environmentally better for the world than the oil, and we are not using it. In Europe, you've got lots of cars already running on liquefied natural gas. I have heard the company making it. There's available. They can build something for home, so you actually can refill at home from your running gas pipe. I think we should be pushing something.
But sorry, where do they get the gas from?
Well, from the normal gas.
Yeah, but they get it out
compress
of,
it.
well,
They
what
get it
they're
out.
anticipating
Yeah.
is blowing holes in the fracture of our earth
I'm not
so that they
talking-
get the gas
We've got
through.
in West Australia, in Central Australia, we've got lots of gas, massive amounts of
There's
gas.
the Northwest Shelf, which has got very good gas
Well, I
reserves.
think it's quite good the way we send it all to China.
They don't liquefy
And then
it.
buy it back. And then buy it back. Yeah.
Well, if we've got all that gas, why are
Yeah,
they
let
wanting to
them
frack
refine-
out Gippsland Hills?
Find the oil and then all
No.
the gas or whatever.
I wonder if it's different gas.
And the billions of dollars will be saving for the whole country in terms of imports of oil, because we're importing everything.
Yeah. But I think
Well,
I
it's
think
the same
I think
as
we'll
why
all
don't
agree
we
on.
manufacture here? Why do we have to import
Look, a
everything?
lot of this is coming from,
Yeah.
look, there's not enough. We better go and
That's
do
right. Yeah.
some desperate things like poison the artesian
But we
basin
actually
to
don't
get
need
more.
it. We don't need it.
energy,
We've got,
right?
We've got
But you're
aluminium.
stupid. It's
That's
so
right.
much better and cheaper.
Yeah. No, we don't need it. We've got
Hang on.
natural.
Yeah.
We've got
So
natural,
that's what I'm saying,
yeah.
right? We need to change the consciousness,
That's
the
exactly
awareness,
right,
the
yeah.
thought
yeah.
about who we are, you know, that there is enough, right? And once you get into that, you release the fear.
Mm.
But do we even want that anyway?
What? Sorry?
Yes. No, we don't. No, we don't.
I mean, is that the way we really want to go with our energy sources?
No.
Full stop.
Well, we need to get the thought right first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the vision's flawed, then everything else is flawed. That's what I'm saying, right? If I come back to what I was saying, Humans are the only creature on the planet that knows how to rehydrate a landscape. There's no other animal that can do that. They don't have, we're the only ones with the intelligence to do that. And so if you could say, well, is there a divine purpose for humans? If there was a divine purpose for humans, perhaps that's what it is to explode biodiversity.
Well, God gave us the earth to look after. We haven't looked after it, not treating it properly. Now we're starting to realise it's time to turn the earth back into a Garden of Eden like it used to be.
Yeah, well, I think we can do it.
The parks, they cut down all the fruit trees beside my house. Lovely old heritage apple trees and everything. Chopped them all down and put just grass there and big stone gravelway through the middle. They should have left the trees there.
Again, it's vision which has caused that problem.
And it feeds the animals, you get more animals, you get more bird food, you get more...
It's like you're saying about the gardens. We don't have garden area in the cities, but we've got common areas that they're supposed to give you. If you have several people want to band together and make a vegetable patch, the council's got to give you a piece of land.
Yeah, you've got the high-rise flats, you've got the high-rise flats in Richmond.
It's supposed to be law, and they were doing it in other countries. Hugh Withington, whatever his name is, in England was doing it, but in some country they were going and ripping them out. America, I think. They were going and ripping out the gardens.
Yeah.
For some unknown reason.
Yeah, that was in the movie Escape from Suburbia.
Yeah.
There was actually news reports, not on the mainstream, but there were articles about them doing it in real. It wasn't just a movie, but it's what we could be doing in the city. I mean, I live on property, but if I still live here, I'd be working towards a communal area. Even in Foster, where we live, not Foster, Foster the place, there's centre roundabouts that are completely edible.
Yes, but how?
Oh, I needed the toilet.
How common is that?
No, but it's what we can do.
Well, in the Ring Cedars model, they don't use common land, right? They say each family, each king's domain has got 1 hectare, and in that 1 hectare, you are totally responsible, right? And it's the best of both worlds because you can have your individuality within your own plot, right? One of the things that is killing this society, the Western Irish society, is individuality, right? But in the Ring Cedars model, you can be individual within your own domain as well as be interdependent with everyone else.
You have been separate, yes.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the interdependent model is the one to go with. Right? If you're dependent, you're disempowered. If you're independent, fighting each other. Right? So the model to go for is the interdependent.
Too close together, we're all becoming more violent as a society because we live too close together. The old saying in the Bible, how far should you live from your neighbour?
No.
Stone's throw away.
Okay.
If you're a stone's throw away from your neighbour, then you don't hear what's going on. You're not involved. Everyone's got their own little life.
I like that. Yeah, just throw a stone. That's where the next plot should be.
Personal space, as far as I can throw.
Fair enough. All right, so coming back to Foster's vision, and he actually said at the Solution Summit that his vision is to bring a free energy device to the world. And I love that idea. It's a wonderful idea. But if we do it in the terms of low consciousness, I think we'll have a big problem. Because it'll be turned against us. It'll be turned into a weapon, perhaps. So in the context of low consciousness, it's probably not a good idea. Let's start with raising the consciousness. I think Foster would appreciate that sort of scenario if we can make suggestions going beyond just the Thrive vision. So based on those sort of ideas, actually a lot of the movie also featured other fancy technology and extraterrestrials and crop circles, and perhaps those are clues about how little we know about the universe. And from my point of view, it's not fancy technology or extraterrestrials or a cataclysm is going to save us. It's actually our own spirituality. It's our own reconnection with the values and with the
earth. Is within us to do what we need to do without us.
It's we're the ones that we've been waiting for, not something outside.
Our planet.
One of the big problems with the New Age movement was, oh well, we're going to have big cataclysms soon, and it's all going to be nice at the other end. Well, it doesn't. I don't think it works that way. I think we've got to put some work into it.
We all thought
it's got to come from within.
2000, we thought it was the end of the world, didn't we?
Yeah, we've had lots of the end of the world. Yeah, we've had plenty of ends of the world. And so, one of the strong ideas I got from the Conversation with God books is that we don't have an economic problem or political problem, religious or military, industrial or technological problem, social or constitutional or moral. We have a spiritual problem. It all comes down to our spirituality, and all those other things will come into play. Right? I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense, actually, yeah.
Sorry?
It does. Perfect sense.
Yeah, I thought
if you're spiritual,
if you're... perfect sense too.
But I guess only being spiritual, you'd have to be spiritual to understand it, I guess.
Yeah.
That
well,
makes sense.
It's just way out of most people's
exactly,
grasp. So
that's right. Yeah.
Different people are going to relate to different levels of this understanding that we've got. You know, we've been probably all studying it for many years, and you know, we're trying to make this understandable for people that haven't, so that we can spread this word effectively.
Well, one obvious example is we might think technology is the answer to all our problems. You know, let's just increase the technology, and that'll save humanity, right? But look at what technology is doing to us, right? We're getting blasted with this wireless communications. We're getting, you know, the technology is spurring on this geoengineering weather control and leading to the chemtrails. The technology is leading to genetically modified organisms, which is also killing us.
It's not the technology that's doing the bad things, though. It's like the gun doesn't kill the people that pull the trigger does.
Technology is not in
can
itself.
be good and used for great things. That's what we hope.
That's why we're using the technology.
When it's used properly. You've got to get the power out of the hands that use it wrongly. That's, I think, the problem that's happening.
It's not technology which is the culprit. It's the consciousness behind the technology that's the problem. So it's a consciousness crisis, not a...
Shine the light on that part of it then. What do you think about that?
Sorry?
Shine the light there. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. And I run into a lot of people who say they're going to solve all the problems using economics, and I'm thinking, okay, all right. I'm not going to argue.
I'm not really sure what you call spirituality, but what I call spirituality is living from my heart and doing things which I feel in my heart are the best I can do at the time.
Well, until we learn to get on with each other, nothing's going to really work. That's the whole thing. I used to belong to an environment group. This is probably almost with any group, anybody ever joins. And these people were supposed to be, they were really concerned and caring and wanting to do their best for the planet, but they couldn't get on with each other. Even with all these good intentions that they were working for.
Well, I stopped going to environmental groups, and the reason is when I walked into the room, I could feel despair. Right? And I would not say anything in the group because it was just despair. And what the message I would have liked to put forward was, it's not the time for despair, it's the time for repair. We can fix those issues, right?
Good way to put it.
Yeah, if you're feeling despair, you're disempowered, you're a victim, right? And as soon as you go into victim mentality, you're disempowered and you can't do anything about it. The next thing I was going to... Oh yeah, that's right. That's the next thing I was going to say. At Magpie House, we do look at the dark agendas, and there's plenty of them. Right? One of the movies I showed last year was called Propaganda, and it was made in North Korea. Now, admittedly, it was a little bit North Korean biased, but everything it said in that movie was true. And it showed the very worst of Western imperialism. It's terrible. It's really bad. You should watch it. It's on YouTube. It's a propaganda North Korean movie.
With subtitles?
Sorry?
With subtitles?
Yeah. You'll understand it.
Oh, really? It has subtitles, does it?
Sorry?
There is subtitles.
Yes,
Is it
You don't
English
have to
or
be
is
able to
it?
speak Korean.
Yeah. Or it might be in English.
Is it in English or is it? No, I'm not sure if you were joking.
I was just joking.
Okay.
No,
No, because I'm
I
not
think it
good
is.
then. I want to know.
It's got subtitles.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Awareness means you're taking back your power. You're refusing consent. Can I play a little video which shows an example of refusing consent? This is one I created very recently, and I've got it on YouTube. Okay, this is a guy that came into the shop just a few weeks ago and said he was going to pull my fuse. I'll just show you what happened. It's only a couple of minutes. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so you think you've got some legislation which says it's mandatory. I point you to it. It's a lie, right? Because it's only mandatory on
Oops, sorry.
you to try and get them installed. Okay, right? It's not mandatory on us.
Does this go back to strawman, does it?
Right? It's not mandatory on us. Yes, I am videoing. Okay, so you're videoing now after we've already had a discussion. No, hang on. You've called me an aggressive customer. That's what I put you. You came in here and threatened to pull my power. Now I call that aggressive. I told you that if you keep refusing, the option will be for the supply authority to pull your fuse because it is a mandatory rollout. It's not a mandatory. It's mandatory on you. It's not mandatory on us. Okay. I know the legislation. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm just here to try and do the job. Yeah, you think you're doing your job? That's what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. You've sold your soul, mate. Okay, according to you. No problem, I'm just looking for the paperwork. I don't seem to have it. But if you go on the Energy Safe, as I told you earlier, you go on the Energy Safe Victoria website, or I know all that information. Okay, so if you know that information, then you should understand. Yeah. What you don't understand is you're making a lot of people sick.
Whoops.
Okay, and we don't need that. All right, no problem at all. Okay, you want to go ahead, make the population sick? Okay. Go ahead. No problem. Right. Thanks very much for your time. Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
He obviously hasn't looked into the information, has he?
To get empowered, you need to raise your awareness about these issues, right? Now, I've looked into the legislation. I know it's not mandatory, but they've been going around to thousands of homes saying it's mandatory, and what do people do? They cave
positive.
in.
Yeah, wow.
Even then when they don't want it, it's criminal.
Is this a smart meter?
Yeah. I'm actually grateful for the smart meter coming online because it's highlighted the other issue,
Yeah,
and
the
that's the
Wi-Fi.
wireless problem. The mobile phone towers. I can show you stacks of videos on the problems with wireless technology. It's interfering with our bioelectrochemical system. It's disturbing the muscle interaction, it's disturbing the brain.
And the bees.
Yes, the bees are disappearing according to one of the sources. The birds and the bees. Yeah.
Maybe the human residence itself.
Well, that's what they're trying to do. Stop us from waking up.
In Poland, they've already prohibited all these chemicals, and they just did not manage to get it through in the rest of the Europe. But it's very clearly evidenced that certain chemicals are killing the bees.
Well, there's many different theories about it. Yeah, it could be the chemical sprays.
GM food.
And in America, they're actually making the honeycomb or the hives different size, larger, so that
Yeah, but the bees know exactly what size it
that's
is.
right, they know.
Okay. Right. So anyway, what I'm highlighting here is you've got to get aware. Now, there's a second video. I followed this guy into the next shop, but she doesn't want it either.
Right.
And I got permission from her. Can I keep videoing? The
Decent,
second part's on YouTube as well. And that was straight from YouTube. And he got so uptight about me being there, he pulled his mobile phone out and called 000.
Oh, really? The police were going to do you harassment.
I'm going to call the police. Yeah. I'm thinking, what? You're the one that's trespassing, not me. Anyway, he was bluffing. Okay? And that's all it is, it's bluff.
But do you think these guys, honestly, do you think these, I mean, I'm obviously on your side and that side for sure, because I agree 100% what these smart meters do, but do you think they really, these guys that are going around representing, do they actually know about it?
It's a job.
No, they're having a job.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the thing is, how many of them actually know? Like, I wonder. You know, it's just a question, I guess. You know.
Well,
like, did he show any awareness himself that he actually knew? I mean,
no,
is it?
he gets told one thing and do your job.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I'm in government and
this is the job description.
Yeah.
You tell me one thing, but
You're an employee of the government.
They do
Yeah.
the same thing to me.
Yeah. Well.
And he still has to feed his family, so it's probably easier not to look too far either. Maybe he wouldn't really
Well, that's it. That's the
want
other.
to have a
That's the other
contest.
point. You know.
Make it just too hard for him.
Easier if you don't know. The one that came around my property with the job of putting on a smart meter, and I said, no, I don't want it, and he's saying it's mandatory, and I'm saying, no, I don't want it, and I'm going to ring up places and whatever. And he said, tell them that you're ringing the ombudsman.
Yeah, there you go. That always works.
Ring the, sorry?
He told me to tell the company I'll ring the ombudsman, and they left me alone. Now that was the man that came around and put on the smart meter. He's the one honest fellow in the country.
There's a problem there too, because the ombudsman has been telling people that it's mandatory as well.
Well, it shut them up. It got them off my property.
Yeah.
What we've got is a no trespassing sign, the official one from the government.
Yeah, I've got one there as well.
So to speak, you guys.
We padlocked our.
Yeah, we padlocked our meter box and we cut out a slit so you can read the meter without opening the box.
Well, I'm in a body corporate, so I'd like to know the answer to that.
I've had.
You've got no choice.
You've got the power, right?
Yeah, but as a body corporate, it's a central unit and it goes around everyone. So I'd have to convince all 16
But you've still
of us.
got an individual meter.
No, I don't. It's all linked in. Yeah, I do, but
I had read a story about the smart meters where one lady had real health issues regarding this smart meter, and then I reduced the frequency down by 80%. And after which apparently it has gone better. But it tells you how high the frequency is being set. If they can reduce it by 80% and it's still functioning, that tells the story, doesn't it?
I think some people put metal around the box or something too.
you can
My
do
daughter
that.
has
Yeah,
put
apparently,
a chicken wire
But
there.
the whole thing is, you know, stopping this flow of poison on all sorts of levels into our lives.
The wireless technology.
All of it.
Yeah.
And then they put certain frequencies in that are disharmonious to our energy.
Well, it is disharmonious because it's the microwave frequency we use for microwave ovens. You know,
And that's just where it starts. There's other stuff. You know?
And we're a bit hypocritical. Most of us have mobile phones, but they're doing the same thing.
That's right.
Nearly 100% of the population is using mobile phones.
Yeah, so aren't we a bit hypocritical? Will you be complaining about one thing but not about the other
We
one?
created it. We are the ones that can fix it. We created it. There's no doubt about that.
Well, is it just a matter of changing our responsibility to it?
Do you guys know
that's
about
right.
the orgone harmonisers? Does anyone know about those?
Let me tell you about the source field telephone, which I got from David Wilcock information. David Wilcock is postulating, and he's provided many examples of the source field. The source field is not electromagnetic. It's a high dimensional field which connects everything together in the universe, right? And somebody created a telephone using the source field. In other words, you can talk to anyone around the world, or even anyone throughout the galaxy, apparently, instantaneously. You know, electromagnetic radiation or light travels at a certain limited speed. But the source field is everywhere, and it's instantaneous. Right? Now, I've got very little information on this telephone. I don't even know if it's practical, right? But if we're able to elevate our visions of where we can go, then we don't need the electromagnetic technology. Now, I don't think
it won't affect us. It just becomes ineffective on us.
Well, if you use the source field instead of the electromagnetic field,
telepathic communication.
Yeah, that's the other way. If we're on the verge of perhaps telepathy on a mass scale, in which case you don't need these technocratic devices. In fact, the technocratic devices are holding us back because they're like prosthetics. You know?
Ball and chain.
Sorry?
A ball and chain.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah, because they're stopping us from developing our higher abilities. Yeah. Yeah. Let's move on. I'll just read some quotes. The one that you mentioned, the problems I think you mentioned it. The problems, or you did, yeah. The problems we have cannot be solved at the same level of thinking in which we created them, from Albert Einstein. Now, Buckminster Fuller said something similar. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Right? So if we're out there fighting the system and trying to change it, all you're doing is feeding it more energy. Right? So when you're coming up with solutions, Thrive Solutions, make sure you're presenting the alternative, not putting energy back into the old system.
Well, old Chinese saying, unless you change direction, you get to where you're going.
Okay, that's a good one.
We've
I'll write that down.
We've got to start educating our children and our children's children as well, in more self-sufficient ways and stuff.
Well, the current education system doesn't do that.
You know, the current teenager, you say iPhone, he jumps through the roof about it. You mention puts some power pill on the potato patch out the back and you run a mile, you know. You know?
Yeah.
Teach them about self-sustainability and stuff.
But if I take these some of these quotes to a higher level, I'll quote Conversations with God material, which says, "Only when you say I did this, can you find the power to change it." You know, whatever dark agenda you can possibly imagine, some deep level we've all created. You know, I've created them all as well. Anything that well, there's another saying from the same books. At some level, you have all created that which you detest, and having created it, you have chosen it. This you cannot accept, so you disown your own creations. It is this intellectual and spiritual dishonesty which lets you accept a world in which conditions are as they are. If you had to accept, or even felt a deeper inner sense of, personal responsibility for the world, it would be a far different place. But this is so patently obvious is what makes it so utterly painful and so poignantly ironic. It says it all, doesn't it? Personal responsibility is what it's all about.
Personal responsibility for yourself?
No, for everything that's out there.
Yeah, but for yourself, because how you react to it and how you're walking the walk and talking the talk and showing everybody else.
Yeah, but a spiritual idea is you are powerless to change anyone else or anything out there. The only person you can change is yourself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then you change that you see.
Yeah, and then you inspire others to change with you. That's the way forward. Actually, 2 nights ago, I was at the Dharma and her introduction.
Oh yeah.
The spiritual eco community from northern Italy, and one of the key aspects of their community is responsibility. Everyone that's on the community, living in large-scale families, that's their model, has got a sense of responsibility to the community, to the family, and to the entire federation, and in so doing to the entire earth. I thought that was very good.
Do you mean, when you say large scale families, do you mean families that are linked or just families on their
Their
own?
model,
Sorry, I
they
didn't-
might have 20 people to a house,
Oh, okay.
right, and
Right.
children as well.
Oh, well.
So they're largish houses, everybody's got their own private space, and there's quite a number of these within the Dam and Her Federation. That's up to 1,000 people, about 1,000 people.
There are a lot of models like that in Europe where once children get married, they put another story on the family home.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our local council sort of moving this away from people living in communal areas on land. They're making it difficult to put an extra house on property. It has to be 100 acres before you can have a residence. Otherwise it's a holiday place. You're saying about people living on the land. They're trying to make it that you can't have a piece of land under 100 acres.
Yeah, that's right.
That you can actually live on. Otherwise it's called a holiday residence and you can't live on it.
Are you kidding? Really?
No, that's now.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Difficult
well,
to get
we had that issue when we were searching for land ourselves. We found it very difficult to do in Victoria, so we ended up in New South Wales.
What are you actually doing in New South Wales?
Oh, we bought 2,000 acres, a group of us. It was quite a large group when we started, right? And they all wanted it, right? And well, when it came to the crunch, when we found some land, it wasn't easy either finding this land. Right? We spent months and months and huge amount of research and a lot of travelling looking for the ideal land for what we wanted. And we had a criteria, right? And after many, many trips and lots of soul searching, meditations and all this, we found everything that everybody wanted on this land, right? And we came back to the group and said, let's buy it. And you should have seen the fear response. It meant that they would have to commit.
The money.
Right? And that's when the group fell apart.
Is this the same group that started off at the Nexus group?
No, it's not the Nexus group.
It wasn't. Is there some other suggestion going on?
Yeah, look, their model is similar to a lot of other city-based models. They want something on the outskirts of the city, and that doesn't work from what I can ascertain.
But then you did get the money to go to buy it after all.
Well, let's say we didn't get a loan. Yeah, we didn't want to go down that path of being...
But even in a city, but at least in the eastern suburbs, there's lots of opportunity. Why do we have to have this manicured front lawn? We can easily grow vegetables there. A whole street can arrange, can say, I am good in growing this crop, I'm good in cropping that one, and then exchange it.
Yeah, for sure.
What we've got at the moment...
Cooperative.
We don't, well, the more official you go, the more they try to control you. The less you do it just individually and agree with people on a personal level, the better. Because then nobody can say you've got a organisation formed or this, that.
It's not a corporation, a cooperation. That's the difference. We've got to try and change the corporation, which has a head making money out of all of our work, into a cooperation, and everybody's doing what they want and making their livelihood out of it.
Yeah.
So I think the problem comes from the direction that's stopping us from doing these God-given rights of having a piece of land and living off it. It's the governments that are stopping this, and they're trying to stop it more and more.
And they're trying to change councils with the local government.
This is what I'm getting at. Exactly. They're trying to make it into a situation where they can make laws and stop us from doing what we're giving rights.
Bylaws by having a group of 6 people able to pass the bylaw in council.
What we've got up in Tacoma is we've got a community garden patch, which is like a couple of hectares of land with a little segmented off garden beds, and you rent one for $30 a year. It covers your water and the use of the land, and you can grow your own veggies and all that there, and will be.
But there's limited space. I've also put my name to one of those gardens, but it's a year or 2 years waiting time. You're not sure whether you actually get something if there's such a big...
Got to wait for someone to drop dead.
Beg your pardon?
Got to wait for someone to drop dead.
Wow.
Yeah, just about.
It's ridiculous with the
there are community gardens.
And there was free land next to that. I suggested, why don't you extend it?
Once again, who is stopping it?
Yep.
Is it the local government or the state? It's the government that's stopping it. That's what I'm getting at. The rot is at the top. The government's controlling the whole the problem. And that's what I think I'm here to actually expose.
They're living from here, not here.
Well, the government's controlling people who are in fear. I agree, yes.
Yeah, but then it's our responsibility to change that, to take that back.
Yes, and once you do feel freedom, then they can't control you with fear.
That's right, yeah.
And once they notice that you're no longer afraid of them,
then they get scared.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, they're back on.
These things are being
the smart
exposed.
meter bloke, you scared him off pretty good, George.
Oh well, you know, I've got months and months of correspondence with SB Ausmet, our supplier, because they tried to do the same thing at our home, and I've got it in writing and on that video that they threatened to disconnect my power, and subject me to heavy fines. Now that to me is a trade practices issue. It's also a human rights issue. When I rang up the Human Rights Commission, they said, "Oh well, that's more. We deal more with discrimination." Well, I said, "Okay, well not just me. What about the old lady down the street who doesn't have any access to this sort of information? She's being discriminated against." And they said, "Oh yeah, it could be, right?" I've heard that the Stop Smart Meter group have tried human rights and trade practices, but I don't think they've taken it far enough. You just got to keep insisting.
Well, I have got quite a bit of different opinion. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether this human rights movement actually is working in our and in the human interest. I have got a feeling they are actually infiltrated by forces, by forces which working against us, and that the majority of people believe in these organizations because they've got all these names which make it sound they're doing the right thing for us. I think that's where we have to start waking up.
Like environmental concern and sustainable development, that's all a misnomer for controlling our resources and controlling us.
I have had an experience of my local council, all of them got a letter saying 43 trees are protected on my property. and I was very concerned about some really beauties on our property. 40? So I started inquiring. I went all the way back. I said, well, this council meeting and what happened before then, and this and that. And I came back to the year 2000, where there was a group of councillors asked to evaluate whether that might be a good idea to do this environmental protection stuff. So I said, yeah, and can I please have the meeting prior to these councillors having been appointed to do that, where the council meeting actually had decided upon that. That council meeting did not exist. It came in the back quite. And they said to me, well, you can go to an independent, what's it called? To an independent panel hearing, which at the end I did. So, having been at that independent panel hearing, there was the chief arborist present as well, and so I asked the question, I said, can you please tell me the following? Can you tell me why the same tree, which is so-called protected on our property, stands on 3 neighboring properties on which that same tree was not protected? And I couldn't get any answer. I said, well, if it is really for the environment, why isn't the bush being protected? Because we've got lots of little birds who need habitat for breeding. And at the end of the day, I realized that the lady who led this independent panel was a signatory to the Victorian Planning Department. That's how independent the panel was.
Correct.
And nobody can tell me that this is in the name of the environment. There is a smokescreen under the Agenda 21 to make us all slaves.
Exactly.
And the people need it, what do you say, all in one.
So I'm right on your level here. What we're really concerned about is Agenda 21.
We just need to learn to see through all this smokescreen that this so-called do-gooders called government, whatever, are putting in front of us.
And who's pulling their strings?
Yes. Absolutely. Because as I have been at a meeting at David Icke or Ike, depending how you pronounce it, he said to us, it was about 18 years ago, he said that if you have got a pyramid, and if you think that your government is at the top of the pyramid, he said, you are wrong. Your government is somewhere down here, and everything our government is doing is being infiltrated from the very top. And that's what we need to wake up to, because then we are much more powerful to understand this.
I think most of us are on the same level. I think we all understand that.
Yeah, we're all aware of that. Yeah,
we're all there.
Yeah. I've nearly finished my presentation. It's been quite interactive, hasn't it?
It's been good, yeah.
So that's good. I'll just read out a couple of other things which I treasure, you could say. One of them's from a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. I'll just show you the book.
That looks familiar.
Oh, okay, so you've been down that track?
Yeah.
Course in Miracles?
Yeah,
Some of us have.
I've been speaking with it.
Yeah.
10 minutes was enough for me.
Well, let me read you a couple of relevant bits, which I thought were quite relevant. The first one's about people, laws and money. And it says, in the 20th century, money became more important than people. In the 21st century, money will become more important than the laws that are passed by your elected officials, who owe the money for their campaigns and thus their elections to these same corporations anyway. Thus the big money will put itself in a position of total authority. I think we can say that that's actually happening, isn't it? There's almost no doubt about that. Then he goes on, another quote, the 20th century was ridiculous in its violence, its seeming speed up of industrial and technological progress, and its frightening headlines. I think we agree with that. This century you can expect more of the same, only bigger, a lot faster, and even scarier. That's what the ego likes. Now the basis of the book is that the third dimensional realm is actually miscreated thought. It's coming from ego, and it describes a methodology through Course in Miracles to step out of that ego nightmare and realise it's just an illusion anyway.
Make believe, yeah.
It is, yeah, it's miscreated thought. Yeah. One more quote from there, which is relevant now to the chemtrails. Right? It's about the weather. The question was being asked by Gary Renard about earth changes, because there's a lot of information out there about cataclysms and earth changes, you know, the New Age movement going mad and all this, prophecies and all that. It actually says you won't have earth changes, but you will have more violent weather and greater extremes of temperatures, both hot and cold. People think you're getting global warming because of all the pollution you put into the atmosphere, and that's true, but you'll also get colder extremes as well. Fooling with the atmosphere causes both. This will lead to conflicting scientific studies that will confuse people and give the corporations enough of an excuse to go right on doing what they're doing. After all, if the science isn't conclusive, then why should they do anything they aren't forced to? So what if more and more of your children get asthma and acid rain kills all the lakes? So that's what we're doing, we're fooling with the atmosphere. We've seen greater extremes of temperature, both directions. There's a big confusion and conflicting scientific agenda on global warming, as we know, and the corporations use that as an excuse. What a convenient excuse. They'll just keep on doing exactly what they've been doing. That's what we live in. So I found that one very sensible, that particular quote. There is more, but I think I'll call it quits and go back to the websites. That's our Thrive Solutions group, Melbourne. We've got 6 members so far, so we've made a start. Sorry?
Where are they based in Melbourne?
Here.
That's it. That's it. You're not a
Yeah,
member.
I registered this.
Yeah, to join.
And the issues I wrote down were chemtrails, codex, new energy technology, UFO ET, yoga, smart meters, wireless pollution. Because the movie was so focused on UFO type ET and crop circle information, look, we've had a lot of that information come through here as well. We've had people come in and shown us their childhood drawings of their time in the spaceships, right? And they correspond to a lot of other people's around the world, right? And one particular member tells us that he was given information on their propulsion systems, right? And it shows seeing we're looking at the idea of new energy and all this sort of thing, or free energy. He showed us a central magnetic sphere surrounded by little magnets, and he said that the control mechanism was a crystal in the middle of the spacecraft, a pink crystal, and the way you controlled the control mechanism was the aspect of love. Right? So if there was fear there, you wouldn't be able to control it.
Like the organ energy.
Oh, whatever, yeah. But this is fair income information that he's passed on to us, and a lot more information. We've had a third to fifth dimensional workshop.
Is there anywhere we can get access to that information?
Sorry?
Is there anywhere we can get access to that information? Is it on YouTube or anything? Or?
No.
It's not? Okay.
But we've also been involved with other groups working on those sort of motives.
Okay.
And, you know, I've put the word out to them in a minor way. Maybe I can get them to come to the next group or something like that.
Okay.
And of course, Steve's working on his own little project.
Yeah.
What about that cache project that's on the
Sorry?
The cache?
Cache,
Yeah,
Cache,
yeah.
I don't know a lot about it. I tried to get into their website, but it wanted me to register, and I thought, no, I don't want to register. I don't know what the agenda is behind that, but I don't know, maybe there's some credibility there. Anyway, so that's the Thrive website. I also put it onto the Truth Seekers Melbourne, and what have we got? There's my meeting with Foster. How many people? 6 attending according to this. Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, I actually got a response. Yeah. So I'll keep using that medium. Another thing we can do as a group is create a specific meet-up group for this group, right? Because the advantage of that is it goes out widespread, and people who've heard of the Thrive movement may register that way. If I keep it on the Truth Seekers, I've got access to about 200 people, but it's staying within that group only.
I mean, a lot of people use Meetup to find things that go.
Yeah, if we create another Meetup group based on the Thrive Solutions group, it would get out to all the subscribers of Meetup according to these topics: consciousness,
you need to start getting quite a good donation then from each meeting, because it costs money to start a meetup group.
Yeah. I'm already running 2 meetup groups. I'm not sure if I want to get another one.
Yeah.
But it can be useful for making that connection and then shifting everybody to, say, the Truth Seekers or something. This is a video I just downloaded today. The next financial crisis has been watched by 1 million people. Look, there's some huge problems out there. We're not going to solve those problems with just staying in the third dimensional context. That's my view. So that's why I offer the spirituality idea, that we've got to change our values. Simple as that.
Still revolves around people waking up, though.
Sorry?
Yes.
It requires a person waking up to that spiritual awareness or to that problem that's existing, and different things are going to wake different people up. I mean, it can take years for a person to gather all this information and actually, work it all out. So I think because it's this year that they could be rolling out the Agenda 21 of making local councils into local governments, and that's what Anne Bresington says will be the way that they'll roll out the New World Order. That'll be it. They'll have their groundwork laid. We'll have no power, and it's done then. It's virtually, fate accomplished.
They had a similar referendum in 1988, which we shut down.
Yeah, but people aren't as aware.
The City of Melbourne is actually a signatory to Agenda 21.
Oh yeah, they all.
They're afraid of this. What you're saying. All the fears are going berserk that they're using to make people accept the. See, on the Wikipedia, Agenda 21 is supposedly this good thing. It's sustainable development. It's got all of these aspects that are supposed to be good for humanity. And then there's people like Tom DeWeese that have picked it apart for years. He's been doing talks on it, and he says most indisputably that it's got problems in every area of it that you've only got to look deeply into. But this is the problem. Most people don't have the time or the wherewithal to look deeply. So I think we've got to cut to the chase and make it very understandable for people what the root of all of these things is. We can't just go attacking chemtrails and fluoride and all of these issues that will disseminate all of the energy. I think we've got to come to the realisation, like Santos is very aware, and you must be in cahoots with Santos because he's in this area.
I've had 9 presentations here.
Yeah. So what he's on about, I think, is what we've got to get.
May I just tune into what you have just been saying? There's this coming Tuesday in Blackburn is a meeting of the White House Residents and Ratepayers Association, which at the same time is getting into that Agenda 21 thing, and because there is a referendum just around the corner, and the people, how should I put it best? It is difficult for the question surely will be set to such a standard that most people would want to say yes to what they are asking.
In the referendum, they won't even understand the question.
However, at this meeting, that will be dissected, and I have seen a sheet of the agenda, and there's a lot of aspects of the Agenda 21 in there highlighted. If we vote that referendum in, which they are proposing, what we will have ahead of us. And so everyone can come, everyone is invited to come to Blackburn to this meeting this coming Tuesday.
I'm actually staying in Melbourne 3 days to go to that meeting.
Oh wow.
Are you going?
Yeah. I've organised my farm around me being here for 3 days to come to this and then that because...
Can someone give me the details and the address and the time?
It's, I can't remember now, 7:30 or is it 8?
Manchester Unity Building.
Manchester Unity Building in Main Street in Blackburn. It's just south of the station. On a city
Manchester
side.
Unity.
Manchester Unity Building. And it's on a city side of the street, just straight down from the...
What's the street name?
Main Street.
Main Street,
yes.
Blackburn, 8 p.m.
Yes.
And they're taking back sovereignty, our sovereign rights. So what's in jeopardy here?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So they're giving the means for us to understand that.
Starting
with the birth certificate and all this.
I know Peter personally very well, who gives the speech, because I have been on a committee myself until last year. So, and he's brilliant, and you will have, you feel trust in this man when he speaks. So.
Sorry, are you talking about, are you talking about straw man? Is that what you're...
Well, the whole fictitious corporate ownership of us and our land and our body and our soul and everything.
Black Bull's dictionary and how it all, the whole...
Yeah, and going back to the papal bulls.
Yeah, common law.
It's all the Roman...
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Roman Empire became the Roman Church. And
yep.
I mean, Santos has been saying this for years.
That.
The last one that I've watched, which was wonderful, was his the Vatican owns your soul.
Yep.
That says it all.
Yep.
You've seen that?
No.
Yep.
Okay, it's a great one. Get it on YouTube.
Well,
does anyone know about...
I don't have...
Has anyone seen...
I've got an understanding as this, I don't have to see it.
Have you guys been watching Project Camelot at all?
Yes.
Anyone have any opinion of that? Project Camelot? Anyone have an opinion?
Some of it's a bit out there.
Yeah.
I just feel that
far out.
Too far. Yeah.
I just feel that we're all trying to fix up the things in the remote.
Have you seen much of it? Like,
I'm not sure if Kerry with her interviewing.
Yeah. I don't think Kerry's the best interviewer, to be honest. But I just find once you start watching over 20 or 30 of the videos, I don't know if anyone's there's that many of them, but I've seen quite a few of them.
Oh, some of it's nonsense though.
But some of it you start seeing a link into what we see, what we know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some of it is absolute nonsense, I agree. But a lot of it...
Well, the way she treated Bob Dean, I think that was the...
Yeah, Bob Dean, because he's not part of it anymore. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think he fell out with it, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe between them.
Yeah, there was a fallout between them. But anyway, there's a lot of...
what happened to Bill Ryan?
Bill Ryan, that's right. Yeah, he walked away as well.
Slightly left the centre
I
here.
think success has gone through her head.
People don't watch their environmental footprints nowadays. You get people, there's a jet set plane there for $99 a day, and oh wow, let's go there and let's go here and let's go there and here and there. They're burning up avgas like it doesn't exist, and they're not watching their environmental footsteps. They burn up like a lifetime's worth of driving petrol just by jet setting around, whereas you can watch a documentary on the place and not understand it just as much as being there, sort of thing, you know what I mean? You don't have to go there to see it, you can watch a video of it, you know? People just don't watch their environmental footprint.
Yeah, we can use resources though without abusing them. We still have to have a footprint of some description. Yeah, but it's a balance. Yeah.
The less heavy the footprint is.
I've got a question for you, and maybe some other people here. Just only because I've been following this for nearly 20 years, and it became an interest of mine as a child. And anyway, so the extraterrestrial, the alien agenda. What's your opinion on that? Going beyond government, and does anyone else have an opinion on that? So I know I've asked an open-ended question. I realise that, but
one of the reasons why it could be difficult to grasp, because we've tried so hard to tie down this extraterrestrial issue, is perhaps rather than extraterrestrial, perhaps it's other dimensional.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
Again, if you're trying to solve it from the third dimensional context, you're pushing shit uphill.
Yep.
So,
you are. Right? You're right.
But if you shift your awareness and try interdimensional, perhaps you get more information from that. I mean, I've shown numerous ET type inspired real stuff, and some of it's bizarre. This young lady that was drawing these enormous patterns, beautiful patterns, and she was doing it without her consciousness, right? And they were huge, they were murals, right? And she wasn't even conscious about what she was doing.
Yep.
And then when people looked at it, they were able to fit all those murals together as a larger mural. And it was some sort of extra-dimensional energy or entity that was bringing that information through. Another example, which is perhaps extraterrestrial, interdimensional or whatever, was a healing person who spoke this interdimensional language, right? And it was amazing to listen to. And one short sentence from her, she said, was worth the whole encyclopedia. I don't know how that works, but
so does she I mean, I know she's accessing the
sorry,
what's the word you use for it? Sorry.
Lots of autistic children that have autistic channel open, which we consider them as deformed or disabled or something, but they have lots of them with incredible capabilities in the mind.
Yes, she's actually autistic. we're doing in our she deals with autistic children all the time, but you're totally spot on. We class them as
language issues.
Yeah, I better finish up. I need a break too.
It's actually you're spot on. But sorry, George, getting back to my question is,
yeah.
And I appreciate the spiritual side of that, of accessing, you know, we're actually taught that we live in a third dimensional reality. In actual fact, we actually live in the fourth and the fifth, but we're just not taught that. And it goes even beyond that if you know, depending on where you're sitting and what you're being taught, but, or what you look into. But my question is, the interference that we're getting, or the from the aliens, I guess, or the ETs, or the interdimensional beings, the greys, the blues. Has anyone got any?
Archons, V-lines.
Yeah, the V-lines. That's right. Does anyone have any contribution, or? I mean, I know what I know, and I'm not great as.
Well, there are research groups, right?
Yeah.
And one of the movies we played showed that there's sketches of roughly 50, 60 different types of extraterrestrial beings.
Yeah.
300
Oh, it could be a lot more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
a lot of them look like us.
Yeah.
And so they might be walking around amongst us. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of.
Could be none though. It could be just all a big story because
that's right.
There's no proof.
I do like the
I
story
keep it
about,
open-ended.
I do like the story about how they're interfering with any time we're going to drop a bomb, that they're stopping it, or they're interfering quite often with drones going over. They'll stop just, and that Stadix virus that was supposed to have gone through the Uranian computer program and really put a lot of damage into that. That was set up by the aliens. I really like that story, and I hope it's true because. We do need all the help we can get. We don't want to rely on their help, but I mean, if they're out there and helping us, well, that's an extra bonus.
I read the Prime Directive, non-interference.
What do you think of the opinion that there's about 120 million underground sites around the world? Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Okay.
I've heard of lots of many things.
Yeah, but well, we know of Area 61, and we know of what's the other one up in Australia, Cape?
Pine Gap.
Pine Gap, thank you. Yeah, we know of that, and I don't know if anyone's seen any conclusive.
Dams, deep underground.
Yeah, the underground tunnels. Yeah. Does anyone? I mean, I'm sure people have heard of that. But
apparently, the aliens have got something.
I mean, why are they keeping us out of these areas? You know.
Well, in America, you're not allowed to even go down.
Well, that's right. So then you've got whistleblowers that are telling us, hey, you know, I've worked for them, and I've been there, and I've been inside the tunnels, and I'm telling you, that it's not just. Pine Gap, it's not just Area 51, there's 120 million of them around that we don't even know, and people have gone in the country and seen all these vents coming out of the ground and things coming out of the vents. What are these vents for? You know?
You know, if you've got an underground base, all you have to do is plug up the air holes.
Yep, well, they talked about that as well. So, I mean, why? I mean, people question the actual fact of why the aliens here. Or are there actually aliens? Sorry?
Could be a big fear campaign. Look at how it gets us all in fear that there's hundreds of millions
could be.
of things.
What about we've been genetically?
It could be.
What about we've been genetically engineered?
Engineered, that's right.
By the aliens, and we're part alien ourselves.
And Von Ross said that the final draw the alien invasion.
Yeah, I'm just asking the question. So.
Well, look, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know, and there seems to be a lot of chaos out there. Perhaps it's worthy to look at our personal journey and the information that I came across 30 years ago told me to look within, right? And that's where it starts. Get back to your heart.
With that.
So what's it like for you?
And there is ways you can get access to that deeper self, which has got all the answers. If you're trying to solve it out there, right,
just to mention
the net helps a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said the net helps a lot.
Oh, the internet is marvellous
right now. If you can't find it inside, well, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, the internet, right, is a even though it's a temporary tool. Once we get in the higher consciousness we won't need it anymore.
I know, I'm finding that all the time.
The internet and YouTube, isn't it interesting that YouTube and internet were timed precisely for the 2012 phenomenon?
Yeah, I agree with
right?
that. Yeah, there you go.
And isn't it interesting that they're already trying to now control the internet, right? They're already controlling it in some places, right?
Yeah, they're already controlling.
We've been given a window, right? YouTube is only a couple of years old, right? And this is what I got from my Akashic records when I do my own readings, right? They actually told me that the YouTube and the internet, they timed it perfectly so that there would be this massive waking up or this dissemination of information which goes to every home around the world, right? Virtually every home around the world got this access to the information, and it said that because of that, even though they're going to try and control it now, it's too late. There's an inevitable outcome.
They don't control the content, they just control the counter.
They control the
counter.
The counter.
The counter, how many hits a video clip has. If it starts getting too many and it's too incriminating,
yeah, they take it off.
They slow it down.
But by then we've downloaded.
So it doesn't get to the top of the list. So it doesn't get.
Oh, they can actually delete it. They actually delete it.
Well,
in the worst case scenarios they do.
Because Google does now own YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And Google is run by the CIA.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So they'll, I've heard of meetings they've been having in order to tie that resource up. But my own records said, look, there's an inevitable outcome coming because so many people have been woken up through that medium alone.
And that brings us back to part of the Thrive movement, which is ensuring freedom of the internet.
Yeah.
And so, we can all do that by joining Electronic Frontiers Australia.
Yeah.
What is this? Tell me more.
It's a lobby group for the freedom of the internet.
Well, this is a good idea. That's a very practical thing that we can do. I think we need to take down some practical movements of what this group's going to try and formulate an action plan, maybe. It sounds good, Tim.
Well, if you haven't seen this movie, make sure you watch it. I'll just play the trailer.
What's the movie called?
Crossing that time when a great transition.
Where is he? I might be here
If you haven't seen it, get it on the internet.
Changing very rapidly.
Yeah, we had this last year.
We have to go along with the change that's happening, as opposed to fear it and resist it.
The guy from
We've all heard about 2012. It's doomsday. The world will end. Mankind will end. Some people have got this idea things will stop, things will enter catastrophe. But actually, none of the philosophy is saying that. The agenda seems to be trying to put a negative spin on it, to radiate fear out on the planet, as opposed to love. And love is the glue of the universe. The more one loves and finds unity in this world and harmony, the more the blessings will be when that time comes. When you get up in the morning, the sun will be shining. It will be just like another normal day. But what might happen, I feel, could have been a great change in consciousness. I prophesize acceleration of both technology and consciousness. It's occurring right now, which is right on time with what's being decoded from the land information. All shall benefit on different levels. Even the unawakened will benefit. Because that's how the universe elevates souls. What is getting ready to happen is a positive thing. It's a step forward in evolution. It's an awakening in consciousness. If we have a good look at our solar system and how it works, the moon goes around the Earth is rotating and orbiting the sun. Now our sun, in turn, is orbiting Sirius. In the great orbit of our two suns, we have turned the corner from the dark ages. Now they're pulling towards each other, bringing us to a higher consciousness. So when one understands that we are the microcosm of the macrocosm,
the stars that go above and around in various different cycles, then we understand the connection between us and the God.
The mood of the whole planet can all be altered, can all be changed. And the reason for that is because the planet, groups, societies aren't what they appear to be. They're just another level of consciousness. We're all consciousness.
If consciousness changes to a higher vibration, which I feel is happening in 2012, the old has to go, the new has to come.
So we're really in just a great time in history to be living. It's just an amazing time. The great changes that we will see with our own eyes will just be stupendous. The new world of love is coming.
Most people think they do love though, because they love their children or they love their pets or something, but they don't have a love for the greater, world and the people, the kids starving overseas. They don't care if their own kids are. People. So this is what we've got to throw out.